Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the massive space station grow larger on the main screen. His hands were steady, but his heart was beating fast. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for. First contact with the Galactic Council, the chance to join a community of intelligent species from across the galaxy. "Captain, we're getting a docking signal," said Lieutenant Lisa Kane from her station. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. They all felt it. After decades of wondering if they were alone in the universe, they were about to meet beings from other worlds. "Take us in," Lieutenant Jake ordered. Nice and easy. The space station, called Kepler 442, was enormous. It looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Lights flickered along its surface, and strange ships of different shapes and sizes were docked at various ports. Some ships were long and thin like needles. Others were round like balls. A few seemed to be made of crystal and glowed with their own light. Commander Ryan Blake, the ship's engineer, whistled softly. "Would you look at that thing? It must be 50 miles across. Bigger," Jake said. The briefing said it was built by 12 different species working together. Each section uses different technology. As the Liberty moved closer, Jake thought about the team they were bringing to this historic meeting. Ambassador Patricia Wells was the best diplomat Earth had. She spoke 6 languages and had spent years preparing for this moment. The rest of the delegation was carefully chosen too. Scientists, military officers, and cultural experts. All of them looked ordinary in their simple environmental suits. That was the plan. Earth's leaders had decided to appear humble and non-threatening. The last thing they wanted was to scare these advanced aliens. Humans would present themselves as they truly were. Biological creatures who had just learned to travel between stars. "Docking complete, Captain," Lisa reported. Jake took a deep breath. "All right, people. This is it. Let's make a good first impression." The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Jake stepped through first, followed by Ambassador Wells and the rest of the human delegation. The corridor beyond was huge, with a ceiling that stretched up at least 30 feet. The walls seemed to be made of some kind of living metal that shifted colors as they walked. "Welcome, humans." The voice came from everywhere at once, speaking perfect English through hidden speakers. "Please follow the guide lights to the council chamber." Blue lights appeared in the floor, leading them deeper into the station. As they walked, Jake noticed other beings moving through the corridors. His breath caught in his throat at the first sight of them. A creature that looked like it was made of living crystal floated past them. It was tall and thin, with light pulsing. Through its transparent body, behind it came something that looked like a giant insect walking on 4 legs, with 2 additional arms coming from its torso. Its shell was dark and shiny, and its eyes were like black mirrors. "Don't stare," Ambassador Wells whispered. "Remember, we want to appear respectful." But it was hard not to stare. Jake had seen the pictures in the briefing files, but seeing these beings in person was different. They moved with such grace and power. Some of them glowed with their own energy. Others had natural armor that looked stronger than any metal Earth could make. The guide lights led them to a massive circular chamber. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars beyond. Around the room, 12 different sections were arranged like pieces of a pie. Each section was designed for a different species. The human delegation was led to a small area near the entrance. Simple chairs had been provided, clearly added just for this meeting. Jake couldn't help but notice how small their section looked compared to the others. "Humans of Earth," a voice boomed through the chamber. "I am Chairman Nexver of the Zephorian Empire." Jake looked up to see the being who had spoken. Chairman. Nexver was 12 feet tall and made of what looked like living diamond. Electricity seemed to dance across his surface, and his voice carried the sound of thunder. "We welcome you to this gathering of civilized species, though we must say your arrival has caused quite a stir." Around the chamber, Jake could see representatives from the other species. A creature that looked like a giant snake with arms was coiled on a raised platform. Something that appeared to be made of pure energy flickered in a containment field. A being covered in scales and spikes sat on what looked like a throne made of bones. "Thank you for allowing us to attend," Ambassador Wells said, standing up. "We're honored by this opportunity." A sound filled the chamber. It took Jake a moment to realize what it was. Laughter. The aliens were laughing. "Look at them," hissed the snake-like creature. "They're so small, so weak. They don't even have natural armor. No claws," added the spiky being. "No energy weapons built into their bodies. How did they even survive long enough to reach space?" The crystalline chairman held up a hand, and the laughter stopped. "Please forgive my colleagues. It's just that we've never encountered a species quite so ... primitive." Jake felt his jaw tighten. Ambassador Wells put a warning hand on his arm. "Your bodies are made of simple flesh and bone," the chairman continued. "You have no natural defenses, no built-in tools. You can't survive in space without mechanical assistance. Can't even communicate without making sounds with your mouths." More laughter echoed through the chamber. Jake watched as the aliens pointed at the human delegation and made comments to each other in their own languages. He didn't need to understand the words to know they were being mocked. "The Hive Queen wonders if you're even truly intelligent," the chairman said, gesturing to an enormous insect-like creature. "You seem more like the animals some of our species keep as pets. We may not have natural armor or energy weapons," Ambassador Wells said calmly, "but humans have survived and thrived through intelligence and adaptability." The snake creature laughed again. "You can barely survive on your own planet without tools. What happens when those tools break? What happens when you face a real threat?" The chairman nodded. "This brings us to your request for membership in the Galactic Council. After much discussion, we have reached a decision." The chamber fell silent. Jake could hear his own heartbeat. "Humanity will be granted probationary status," the chairman announced. "You will be classified as a Class 7 species, suitable for basic labor and resource extraction. You may establish colonies in the Outer Rim territories, but you are forbidden from entering the core systems without escort." "Class 7?" Ambassador Wells asked. "The lowest classification for two losing species," the chairman explained. "Just above the level we assign to particularly clever animals." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. Around him he could see the other humans struggling to maintain their composure. "The council will review your status in 50 standard years," the chairman continued. "If you can prove yourselves useful, you may be elevated to Class 6. Eventually. Perhaps you might even be granted limited voting rights." "This is not what we expected," Ambassador Wells said carefully. "Expectations must be realistic," the chairman replied. "You are welcome to remain for the rest of the session. Please understand that Class 7 species are not permitted to speak unless directly addressed." The human delegation was dismissed to their small section like children sent to sit in a corner. Jake watched as the real business of the council began. Trade agreements between species that could reshape matter with their minds. Military alliances between beings who could travel faster than light without ships. Discussions of technology that was so advanced Jake couldn't even understand what they were talking about. Hours passed. The humans sat in silence, listening to the aliens make decisions that would affect the entire galaxy. Jake found himself studying each species, memorizing their capabilities and weaknesses. Old military habits died hard. When the session finally ended, the chairman approached their section. "We hope this has been educational," he said. "Your species has potential, but you must understand your limitations. The galaxy is vast and dangerous. Creatures like you don't survive long without protection." "We understand," Ambassador Wells replied, but Jake could see in her eyes that she understood something else entirely. This wasn't over. Humanity had been challenged, dismissed, and humiliated. But they were still alive, still free, and still human. As they walked back to their ship, Jake made a silent promise. The aliens thought humans were weak because they looked at their bodies and saw limitations. But they didn't understand what made humans truly dangerous. They didn't understand that. Sometimes the greatest strength came from appearing weak. The real question was how long it would take the galaxy to learn that lesson. 3 months had passed since the humiliating meeting at Kepler 442. Captain Jake Morrison was back on Earth, filing reports that no one wanted to read. The message was clear. Humanity was on its own. Then everything changed. The emergency broadcast came at 0300 hours, waking Jake from restless sleep. His communication device buzzed with an urgent message from Earth Command. All senior officers report immediately. Priority Alpha. Within an hour, Jake found himself in a secure briefing room deep beneath the Pentagon. The faces around the table were grim. Admiral Sarah Johnson, the head of Earth's Space Defense Force, stood at the front of the room next to a holographic display. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Galactic Council has contacted us," she began. "They need our help." A murmur ran through the room.
Oh?
Jake leaned forward in his chair. 6 days ago, something attacked the mining colonies in the Vega system, the Admiral continued. "The attackers call themselves the Void Reapers. They're machines, not biological life, and they're winning." The holographic display showed images of destroyed planets. What had once been thriving colonies were now empty husks, stripped of all resources. Cities were gone, forests were gone, even the oceans had been drained. "The Reapers don't just destroy," Admiral Johnson explained. "They consume everything. Metal, organic matter, even the atmosphere. They use it all to build more ships and weapons." Colonel Frank Hayes, the head of Special Operations, spoke up. "What makes them so dangerous?" "They adapt," the Admiral replied. "Every weapon the Council uses against them, the Reapers analyze and counter within minutes." Zephyrian energy beams? Useless after the first battle? Valkyrie plasma cannons? Neutralized?
No.
The Luminos tried to attack them with pure energy, and the Reapers just absorbed it and grew stronger. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "How many ships do they have? Unknown. They keep building more. But we know they have a command ship called the Decimator. It's the size of a small moon and coordinates all their attacks. The Council believes that if we can destroy it, the entire Reaper fleet will shut down. And they want us to do it," Jake asked. Admiral Johnson nodded. Chairman Nexfer made the request personally. His exact words were perhaps the primitive. "Humans can succeed where civilized species have failed." The room fell silent. Jake could feel the anger radiating from the other officers. Even when asking for help, the aliens couldn't resist an insult. "There's more," the Admiral continued. "If we refuse, the Reapers will eventually reach Earth. The Council estimates we have maybe 2 years before they finish with the outer colonies and move toward the core systems." General Paul Carter, a weathered man with steel-gray hair, stood up. "What's our response?" Admiral Johnson smiled for the first time since the briefing began. "We're going to show them what humans can really do," General Carter will explain. Carter activated a wall display showing a map of underground facilities. "For the past 15 years, we've been working on something called the Prometheus Project. It's been so classified that most of you have never heard of it." Jake studied the map. There were sites all over the world, but the largest was marked as Titan Base in Colorado. "The project started after we detected our first alien signals," Carter continued. "We knew that someday we'd encounter species far more advanced than us. We needed an equalizer." The display changed to show technical drawings that made Jake's breath catch. Power armor. But not like anything he'd ever seen. The suits looked like they were part machine, part living tissue. "The Mark 7 Adaptive Combat Exoskeleton," Carter announced. 15 years of research and development using recovered alien technology and human innovation. "Recovered alien technology?" someone asked. Carter's expression didn't change. "Let's just say we've had more contact with alien species than the public knows. Some of it was friendly, some of it wasn't." Jake stared at the armor designs. "They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Do they work?" "The suits don't just enhance physical capabilities," Carter explained. "They interface directly with the user's nervous system. They amplify human intelligence, reflexes, and intuition while providing protection and firepower that rivals anything the Council species can produce." A new voice spoke from the back of the room. But that's not the best part. Everyone turned to see a woman in a white lab coat walking toward the front. She was young, maybe 30, with short brown hair and intense green eyes. "This is Dr. Sam Phillips," General Carter said. "She's the head of the Prometheus Project." Dr. Phillips nodded to the room. The armor is impressive, but what makes it special is how it works with human psychology. Other species have tried to build similar technology, but it never works for them. Why not? Jake asked. Because they think too logically, Dr. Phillips explained. Their minds work in predictable patterns. The armor needs something more chaotic, more creative. It needs human unpredictability. She activated a new display showing brain scans. Human consciousness is messy. We have intuition, creativity, and the ability to make leaps of logic that don't make sense to other species. The armor amplifies these traits instead of trying to control them. General Carter stepped forward again. We need volunteers for the mission. It's dangerous, and the training is intense. The armor bonds with its user in ways we don't fully understand yet. I volunteer. I volunteer. So do I, said a voice from across the room. Commander Katie Murphy, one of the Navy's best. Pilots was already standing. Within minutes, half the officers in the room had volunteered. Carter held up a hand for silence. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but we can only take 5 people. The mission requires specific skills. He looked around the room. Captain Morrison, you'll lead the team. Your experience with alien contact makes you invaluable. Jake nodded, accepting the responsibility. Commander Murphy, we need your piloting skills. Captain Alex Rodriguez from the Marines for ground combat. Expertise. Sergeant Danny Foster from the Army's Demolitions Unit, and Lieutenant Colonel Grace Turner from Intelligence. Each person nodded as their name was called. Jake looked at his new team and felt a mixture of pride and terror. They were about to attempt something no human had ever done before. You leave for Titan Base in 6 hours, Carter continued. The training will take 2 weeks. Then you'll join the Council fleet for the assault on the Decimator. Dr. Phillips stepped forward again. I should warn you all. The armor changes you. It's not physically, but mentally. Users report feeling more connected to the universe, more aware of possibilities they never imagined. Some describe it as becoming more human than human. What does that mean? Murphy asked. You'll understand when you put on the suit, Dr. Phillips replied. The armor doesn't just make you stronger or faster. It makes you more creative, more intuitive, more capable of thinking in ways that surprise even yourself. The briefing ended with detailed mission parameters and security protocols. As the officers filed out, Jake lingered behind. General Ken, I ask you something. Carter nodded. Do you really think we can do this? These aliens have technology we can barely understand. Been spacefaring for thousands of years. What makes you think 5 humans in fancy armor can succeed where? They failed. Carter was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. Jake, do you know what the aliens' biggest mistake was? What? They looked at us and saw weakness. They saw primitive flesh and bone. They never bothered to look deeper. Carter's eyes grew hard. They never considered that maybe being underestimated is the greatest weapon of all. Jake thought about the dismissive laughter in the council chamber, the casual insults, the way the aliens had treated humans like clever pets. They're about to learn, Carter continued, that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you don't take seriously. As Jake left the briefing room, he felt something he hadn't experienced since the humiliation at Kepler 442. Hope. The aliens thought humans were weak because they judged them by their bodies, but bodies were just the beginning. The real strength of humanity was something the aliens couldn't see, couldn't measure, and couldn't understand. It was the spark of creativity that let humans dream of impossible things and then make them real. In 2 weeks, Jake and his team would show the galaxy what that spark could accomplish when it was properly armed and armored. The Void Reapers were about to meet their match. Captain Alex Rodriguez floated in the zero-gravity training chamber, his body perfectly still. The Mark 7 armor felt like a second skin now, after 2 weeks of intensive training. He could feel the suit's artificial intelligence humming quietly. In the back of his mind, ready to enhance his thoughts and reflexes when needed. Final systems check, came Dr. Phillips' voice through the CUM system. All readings normal. How do you feel, Alex? Like I could take on the universe, Alex replied, and he meant it. The armor didn't just make him stronger and faster. It made him think clearer, see patterns he'd never noticed before. It was like having a conversation with his own potential. Good report to the launch bay. It's time. Alex pushed off from the wall and glided through the corridors of Titan Base toward the launch bay. His 4 teammates were already there, sealed, in their own Mark 7 suits. Captain Jake Morrison, their leader, looked calm and focused. Commander Katie Murphy was running final checks on her equipment. Sergeant Danny Foster was testing his demolition gear. Lieutenant Colonel Grace Turner stood quietly. But Alex could see the intelligence burning in her eyes. They all looked human, just people in environmental suits. That was the point. The Mark 7 armor was designed to appear ordinary until activated. The aliens expected primitive humans in basic gear, and that's exactly what they would see. Team Alpha, board your transport, came the order from Mission Control. Their ship, UES Vanguard, was waiting in the launch bay. It looked like a standard human vessel. No special weapons, no alien technology visible. Just another primitive human craft that the aliens would dismiss without a second thought. The flight to the rendezvous point took 6 hours. When they arrived at the staging area, Alex pressed his face to the viewport and whistled softly. The alien fleet was massive. Hundreds of ships filled the space around them. The Zephyrian vessels looked like living crystals, pulsing with energy. The Valkyrie ships were dark and angular, bristling with weapons. The Luminos traveled in vessels made of pure light contained by force fields. Ships from 12 different species, each one representing technology far beyond anything Earth could openly produce. Impressive, Jake said, joining Alex at the viewport. No wonder they think they're superior. The flagship of the fleet was a Valkyrie battleship called the Eternal Conquest. War Marshal Kethmer, a massive creature with 4 arms and natural armor plating, commanded the fleet from its bridge. Alex had seen his picture in the briefings, 8 feet tall, covered in spikes, with mandibles that could crush steel. U.S. Vanguard, you are cleared to dock with the flagship, came the transmission. The voice carried clear disdain. Report. To War Marshal Kethmer immediately. The docking bay of the Eternal Conquest was enormous. Ships that looked like works of art were parked alongside vessels that seemed to be made of living metal. The human transport looked small and crude in comparison. War Marshal Kethmer was waiting for them in the briefing chamber. He was even more intimidating in person, his 4 arms crossed as he looked down at the human team. Round him stood representatives from the other species, all of them radiating power and confidence. So, Kethmer said, his voice like grinding stone, these are the humans who think they can succeed where we have failed. We're here to do our job, Jake replied calmly. Your job, laughed a Zephyrian officer, electricity crackling across his crystalline body, is to die quickly so the rest of us can focus on real tactics. More laughter filled the room. Alex felt the familiar anger rising in his chest, but he kept his expression neutral. Let them laugh. They had no idea what was coming. The target is here. Kethmer activated a holographic display showing the Erebus Nebula. The Decimator hides in the center, protected by 50 smaller Reaper ships. Our plan is simple. We attack with overwhelming force and destroy everything. Alex studied the tactical display. The Reaper ships were arranged in a perfect defensive formation. Each one was positioned to support the others, creating overlapping fields of fire. It was a strong position, but he could already see weaknesses. The armor's tactical enhancement was showing him possibilities. What about infiltration? Grace Turner asked. Impossible, Kethmer replied. The Reapers scan everything. Their sensors can detect any known technology. Known technology, Grace repeated quietly, and Alex caught the slight emphasis. The attack begins in 4 hours, Kethmer continued. Your ship will stay in the rear with the other support vessels. Try not to get in our way. The briefing ended with detailed battle plans. That didn't include the human team at all. They were dismissed like servants, expected to watch from the sidelines while the real warriors did the fighting. Back aboard the Vanguard, the team gathered in their small briefing room. Jake sealed the door and activated the privacy screens. Well, that was insulting, Katie said. Good, Alex replied. Let them think we're useless. It'll make our job easier. Jake nodded. Grace, what did you pick up from their sensors? Their scanning technology is impressive, but it's designed to detect known energy signatures and materials. The Mark 7 armor uses quantum-encrypted composites that shouldn't register on their systems. And the Reaper defenses? Danny asked. Standard. Adaptive algorithms, Grace continued. They analyze attack patterns and develop counters, but they need data to work with. If they can't identify the threat, they can't adapt to it. The fleet began moving toward the Erebus Nebula. Alex watched. Through the viewports as the massive alien ships formed into battle formations, their confidence was overwhelming. At superior numbers, superior technology, and thousands of years of military experience, they were about to learn that sometimes experience could be a weakness. The first contact with the Reaper fleet came 2 hours later. Alien ships opened fire with every weapon they had. Energy beams, plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes. The space around the decimator lit up like a star. For the first few minutes, it looked like the attack might succeed. Reaper. Ships exploded under the massive barrage. The aliens cheered as their superior firepower tore through the enemy formation. Then the Reapers adapted. Alex watched in fascination as the mechanical ships began changing their defensive patterns. Energy shields that had been overwhelmed moments, before suddenly became effective again. Weapons that had been devastating were neutralized. The Reaper ships began firing back with increasing accuracy. How are they doing that? Katie asked. Learning, Grace replied. Every shot that hits them teaches them something new.
Oh.
They're analyzing the energy frequencies, the delivery methods, the timing. Within minutes, they'll be immune to everything. The fleet is throwing at them. She was right. The tide of battle turned quickly. Alien ships that had seemed invincible began taking heavy damage. The Zephyrian vessels found their energy weapons completely ineffective. The Valkyrie plasma cannons couldn't penetrate the adaptive shields. Even the Lumino's pure energy attacks were absorbed and converted into power for the Reaper weapons. Fleet is taking heavy casualties, came the transmission from the flagship. All ships fall back to secondary positions. Alex could hear the disbelief in War Marshal Kethmer's voice. The mighty Galactic Council fleet, with all its advanced technology and superior beings, was being defeated by machines. Vanguard, maintain position, came the order. Do not engage. Jake looked at his team. Ready? They all nodded. 2 weeks of training, months of preparation, and years of being underestimated had led to this moment.
Grace?
Are you sure about? The infiltration route. The Decimator's sensors are focused on the main battle. There's a gap in their coverage on the dark side of the nebula. We can get close enough to deploy. Danny, charge is ready. Enough to crack a moon. The demolitions expert replied with a grin. Katie, can you get us in and out? Just point me in. The right direction? Jake stood up and sealed his helmet. All right, team. Time to show these aliens what humans can really do. The Vanguard broke away from the main fleet, heading for the dark side of the nebula. To anyone watching, it looked like the human ship was running away from the battle, another sign of human cowardice and weakness. They had no idea that they were about to witness the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Humans who had been underestimated and were ready to prove their worth. The insertion pod drifted silently through the dark side of the Erebus Nebula. Inside, Captain Alex Rodriguez and his 4 teammates sat in complete silence, their breathing the only sound in the cramped space. They were less than a mile from the Decimator now, close enough to see the massive ship's hull through the pod's small viewport. The Reaper command ship was enormous. Alex had seen the technical reports, but nothing had prepared him for the reality. It stretched for miles in every direction, a dark metal mountain floating in space. Strange lights pulsed along its surface, and mechanical arms constantly moved, building new sections and weapons. Scanning sweep incoming, Grace Turner whispered, watching her instruments. Everyone stay still. A beam of energy passed over their pod. Alex held his breath, trusting in Dr. Phillips' assurance that their Mark 7 armor would not register on Reaper sensors. The beam moved on without stopping. We're clear, Grace said. 30 seconds to contact. Jake Morrison activated his COM system. Final check. Everyone ready? 4 voices answered in unison. Ready. The pod touched the decimator's hull with barely a whisper. Danny Foster immediately went to work, placing small charges on the metal surface. The explosives were designed to cut through the ship's armor, without creating a large energy signature that might alert the defenders. Breach in 3, 2, 1. The charges detonated with a soft flash. A section of the hull peeled away, revealing a dark corridor beyond. Jake went through first, followed by the others. They were inside the most dangerous ship in the galaxy. The corridor was lit by a dim red glow. Walls seemed to be made of the same dark metal as the exterior, but Alex could see movement beneath the surface. Wires and cables shifted like living things, carrying information and power throughout the ship. Motion sensors, Grace whispered, pointing to small devices mounted on the ceiling. They're scanning for biological life forms. Do they see us? Katie Murphy asked. Unknown. Our suits should mask our signatures, but... The answer came immediately. A panel in the wall slid open, and 3 mechanical sentries emerged. They looked like spiders made of black metal, each one the size of a large dog. Red sensors glowed where eyes should be, and weapon barrels extended from their bodies. The sentries paused, scanning the empty corridor. Their sensors swept back and forth, searching for the intruders they knew were there, but couldn't detect. They know something is wrong, Jake said quietly, but they can't see us. How long will that last? Alex asked. Not long. These things learn fast. One of the sentries moved closer, its weapon tracking toward Alex's position. The machine was adapting, trying new sensor frequencies to penetrate their stealth systems. Can't wait any longer, Alex said, activating armor. All of us together, Jake ordered. Now. Alex pressed the activation sequence on his chest plate. The response was immediate and incredible. The Mark 7 armor unfolded around him like a living thing. What had appeared to be a simple environmental suit suddenly bloomed into something magnificent. Plates of armor flowed across his body, forming perfect protection while maintaining full mobility. His helmet sealed with a soft hiss, and his vision filled with tactical displays and targeting information, but the physical changes were nothing compared to what happened in his mind. Alex felt his consciousness expand. The armor's artificial. Intelligence merged with his thoughts, not controlling them, but enhancing them. His reflexes became superhuman. His tactical thinking accelerated to incredible speeds. He could see the corridor in perfect detail, track the movement of every sentry, and calculate 17 different attack strategies in the time it took to blink around him. His teammates underwent the same transformation. Jake's armor was deep, blue with silver highlights, designed for command and coordination. Katie's was sleek and fast, built for speed and agility. Danny's was heavy and powerful, loaded with weapons and demolition equipment. Grace's was almost invisible, designed for stealth and intelligence gathering. The sentries reacted immediately. Their sensors finally detected the humans, but the readings made no sense. The armor's quantum signatures were unlike anything in their databases. The adaptive algorithms that had easily countered alien technology found nothing to analyze. Alex moved faster than he had ever moved in his life. The armor amplified his reflexes until he seemed to teleport across the corridor. His right hand formed a weapon from seemingly empty air. Nano-assemblers in the armor created tools and weapons as needed. The first sentry tried to track him, but Alex was already behind it. His weapon, a blade of pure energy, sliced through the machine's central processor. The sentry collapsed, sparks flying from its damaged systems. Katie danced through the corridor like a ghost, armor's stealth systems making her nearly invisible. She appeared behind the second sentry long enough to plant an explosive charge, then vanished again. The machine exploded a second later. The third sentry tried to call for reinforcements, but Grace was already jamming its communication systems. Her armor's electronic warfare capabilities were beyond anything the Reapers had encountered. Danny simply walked up to the confused machine and crushed it with his bare hands. The entire fight lasted less than 10 seconds. "Status report, Jake," said, his voice now enhanced by the armor's communication systems. "All green," Alex replied. "The armor is working perfectly." Better than perfectly, Katie added. I feel like I could run through walls. You probably could, Danny said, examining his gauntlets. These suits are incredible. They move deeper into the ship, and Alex marveled at how the armor changed his perception of everything. Corridors that had seemed narrow and threatening now felt manageable. Obstacles that would have been impossible for unarmored humans were simply problems to be solved. More sentries appeared, dozens of them. The Reapers were learning that something dangerous had boarded their ship, but they couldn't understand what. They were facing. The mechanical minds tried to analyze the human attack patterns, but there were no patterns to analyze. Alex fought with pure instinct, enhanced by artificial intelligence. He moved in ways that made no logical sense, attacked from angles that shouldn't have been possible, and used tactics that were part improvisation and part genius. The armor didn't just make him stronger, it made him more human than human. Katie flowed through the air like liquid. Using the ship's own gravity generators to change direction in mid-flight, her movements were so unpredictable that the sentries couldn't track her long enough to get a lock. Danny fought like a force of nature, his heavy armor allowing him to simply smash through obstacles. But even his seemingly brutal attacks had a creative edge that confused the mechanical defenders. Grace moved through the ship's computer systems like a digital ghost, turning the Reaper's own technology against them. She made lights flicker. Doors open and close randomly, and weapons target their own allies. And through it all, Jake coordinated their efforts with the tactical awareness of a military genius. The armor enhanced his natural leadership abilities until he could see the entire battle like a chess game, moving his pieces with perfect precision. Engineering section ahead, Grace reported. Heavy resistance. How heavy? Jake asked. 50 sentries, plus automated defense systems. Standard approach. Alex asked. Jake's laughter echoed through the comm system. Alex, there's nothing standard about us anymore. They burst into the engineering section like a storm. The Reapers had prepared for this attack with every weapon and defensive system they could deploy. Energy barriers, automated cannons, clouds, of micro-drones, everything. They had learned from fighting the alien fleet, it wasn't enough. The human team moved through the defenses like they weren't there. The armor's technology was so advanced, so completely beyond anything the Reapers had encountered, that their adaptive algorithms simply couldn't cope. But more than that, the humans themselves were unpredictable in ways that drove the mechanical minds to the edge of system failure. They fought with creativity, intuition, pure human stubbornness that no artificial intelligence could analyze or counter. Alex found himself laughing as he fought, joy filling his heart. This was what humans were meant to be, not weak flesh and bone, but creative minds unleashed and given the tools to reshape reality. Core chamber is just ahead, Grace announced. Time to finish this, Jake said, as they moved toward their final objective. Alex realized that something fundamental had changed. The galaxy had looked at humanity and seen primitive weakness, but they had been wrong. Primitiveness was just the surface. Underneath was something far more dangerous, the unbreakable human spirit. Enhanced and armed for war, the Reapers were about to learn what that spirit could accomplish when it was properly unleashed. The core chamber of the Decimator was a cathedral of metal and light. Captain Alex Rodriguez stepped through the massive doorway and felt his breath catch. The room stretched upward for hundreds of feet, filled with spinning rings of energy and data streams that flowed like rivers of light. At the center of it all was the Reaper Overmind. The artificial intelligence was not what Alex had expected. Instead of a single computer, it was a massive collection of crystalline structures that pulsed with dark energy. Each crystal was the size of a building, and they all orbited around a central core that blazed with malevolent intelligence. Welcome. Humans, the Overmind's voice echoed from everywhere at once. You have impressed us with your ability to reach this place. Jake Morrison stepped forward, his Mark 7 armor gleaming in the strange light. We're here to shut you down. Shut me down. The Overmind's laughter was like the sound of breaking glass. I am beyond your understanding. I have analyzed the tactics of 12 species across 1,000 battles. You are merely another data set to be processed. Then process this, Danny Foster said, raising his weapons. The battle began instantly. the chamber filled with mechanical defenders that poured from hidden openings in the walls. These weren't the simple sentries they had fought before. These were Reaper combat units, sleek, deadly machines designed specifically for close combat. But Alex and his team were ready. The Mark the 7th armor had been learning too. Every fight, every movement, every tactical decision had been recorded and analyzed. The suits now knew how their users fought, how they thought, how they moved. The bond between human and machine had become perfect. Alex flowed through the attacking machines like water through rocks. His armor's weapons shifted and changed as needed. Energy blades for close combat, projectile weapons for distance, defensive shields when overwhelmed. But more than the technology, it was his human intuition that made the difference. He could sense where the next attack would come from, not through sensors or calculations, but through pure instinct. The armor amplified this intuition until it became almost like seeing the future. Katie Murphy danced through the air, using the chamber's own gravity fields to perform impossible maneuvers. She moved in 3 dimensions, attacking from above, below, and angles that the Reapers couldn't predict. Her laughter echoed through the CUM system as she discovered new ways to use her enhanced abilities. Danny Foster was a one-man army. Heavy armor, allowing him to simply walk through enemy attacks while delivering devastating counterstrikes. But even his seemingly straightforward fighting style had elements of creativity that confused the mechanical minds. Trying to analyze him, Grace Turner moved through the battle like a digital phantom, her consciousness interfacing directly with the Decimator's computer systems. She turned the ship's own defenses against itself, making automated weapons fire on their allies and causing entire sections of the chamber to shut down. And through it all, Jake coordinated their efforts with superhuman tactical awareness. Armor had enhanced his natural leadership abilities until he could see the entire battle like a master chess player, anticipating moves and countermoves dozens of steps ahead. The Reaper Overmind watched the battle with growing confusion. Its vast intellect tried to process what it was seeing, but the data made no sense. These creatures fought with patterns that were both logical and chaotic, predictable and random. Error, the Overmind announced. Cannot process combat algorithms. Adaptive protocols failing. That's because you're trying to understand something that can't be understood, Grace said, her voice coming from the chamber's own speakers as she took control of the communication systems. You're trying to analyze human creativity. More defenders poured into the chamber, but they moved without coordination. The Overmind's certainty was cracking, and its ability to control its forces was breaking down. Alex found himself faced with a massive combat unit that looked like a mechanical dragon. Its weapons were charged and ready. Its armor was thick enough to stop a tank shell, and its artificial intelligence was programmed with the tactics of every warrior species in the galaxy. Alex smiled and did something completely unexpected. He dropped his weapons and charged forward with nothing but his bare hands. The dragon machine tried to process this suicidal attack, but it couldn't understand the logic. Why would a creature abandon its weapons? What tactical advantage could this possibly provide? The answer was that there was no logic. Alex was acting on pure human instinct, the same instinct that had driven his ancestors to hunt mammoths with stone spears. The Mark 7 armor recognized this instinct and amplified it. Turning primal courage into superhuman capability, Alex grabbed the dragon machine's weapon arm and simply tore it off. The armor's strength enhancement, combined with his absolute determination, made the impossible possible. The machine's confusion gave him the opening he needed. Within seconds, the most advanced combat unit in the Reaper fleet was nothing but scrap metal. Impossible, the Overmind said, its voice now showing signs of strain. Calculating, analyzing. Error, error, error. You can't analyze us, Jake said, blasting through the last of the defenders to reach the central platform. What makes us dangerous? Grace had found what they needed, the Overmind central processor. It was protected by layers of energy shields and quantum encryption. But her enhanced consciousness was already working through the defenses. I can shut it down, she announced. But I need 30 seconds. You've got it, Danny said, planting. Explosive charges around the chamber's exits. Nothing else is getting in here. The Overmind made one final attempt to understand its attackers. It focused all of its processing power on analyzing the humans, trying to find some pattern or logic that would explain their success. But that was its mistake. The Mark 7 armor's quantum-encrypted systems recognized the scanning attempt and responded with a feedback pulse that was pure chaos, random data. It's designed to overload any system that tried to process it. The effect on the Overmind was immediate and devastating. An artificial intelligence that had conquered star systems and defeated entire fleets was suddenly faced with information that made no sense. Its logical processes ground to a halt as it tried to understand data that was fundamentally incomprehensible. System failure, the Overmind announced, its voice now broken and distorted. Cannot process. Logic circuits overloading. Cannot adapt. Cannot understand. What are you? We're human, Alex said simply. Grace finished her work with seconds to spare. The Overmind's central processor began shutting down, its crystalline structures. Going dark one by one? No, the Overmind said, its voice fading. This cannot be. I was perfect. I was logical. I was the voice cut off as the last crystal went dark. Throughout the chamber, the mechanical defenders simply stopped. Without the Overmind's control, they were just empty machines. The great artificial intelligence that had terrorized the galaxy was gone. Charges set, Danny announced. Time to go. They raced through the corridors as explosions began tearing the decimator apart from the inside. The ship's automated systems tried to respond, but without the Overmind's guidance, it could only react to damage, not prevent it. The team reached their insertion pod just as a massive explosion rocked the ship. It launched into space as the decimator began breaking apart behind them. On the view screen, they could see the rest of the Reaper fleet. One by one, the mechanical ships powered down and went dark. Without their central intelligence, they were just floating metal. U.S. Vanguard to Team Alpha, came Katie's voice over the comm. Please tell me that was you. Mission accomplished, Jake replied. The threat is over. Back aboard the alien fleet, War Marshal Kethmer stared at his sensors in disbelief. Reaper fleet that had seemed invincible just hours ago was now nothing but dead metal floating in space. How? He asked his officers. How did 5 primitive humans accomplish what our entire fleet could not? There was no answer because there was no logical explanation. 50 years of military experience, advanced technology, and superior evolution had been defeated by creativity, determination, and the sheer stubborn refusal to give up that defined humanity, Chairman. Thick's verse communication appeared on the main screen. The crystalline being's usual arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been humility. Captain Morrison, he said, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally request a full alliance with humanity. We... Your species. Jake removed his helmet, revealing a simple human face marked by exhaustion, but shining with quiet pride. Around him, his teammates did the same. The armor doesn't make us strong, Jake said to the assembled alien fleet commanders. It just lets us be more human. 3 months later, Ambassador Patricia Wells stood before the Galactic Council in the same chamber where humanity had been dismissed as primitive. But this time, the aliens rose to their feet as she entered. The chair recognizes Ambassador Wells. Of Earth, Chairman Nexfer announced, permanent member of the Galactic Council with full voting rights. As Patricia took her place at the council table, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. The aliens had looked at human bodies and seen weakness. They had never imagined that the greatest strength could come from the mind and spirit within. Now, they knew better. K.